This is the YouTube version of Read All Over the Land, which is the Liverpool fanzine, the longest lasting and only surviving Liverpool fanzine. The man who created it and has been the editor for 28 years is John Pearman. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Issue 300 is out. What a milestone, John. Did you ever think it would get to 300 issues?
I didn't expect to get to 100 issues. But once you started, you just keep going. And when I started this, there were other fanzines around. They all sadly fell by the wayside. And as that one says, we came up with that idea of a cover because it was supposed to be a celebration. We're going to have the cake, and then using the old Leslie Gore song, "It's Our Party, We'll Cry If We Want To." Because the day I've put all that out, Jürgen decides he's not going to be here next year.
Yeah, but it is a cracking. It's a really good. I mean, I'm not just saying it because it's the 300th issue, but it is a really good one. What are some of the highlights in there for you?
Well, I like to think they're all highlights because every person that contributes deserves credit, and we thank Jim for his article this time. I've got a feeling you might have put one in a long, long time ago, Jim. I can't remember for sure.
Have you done that before, Jim?
I possibly think so. Yeah, maybe a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's we've got a special guest came in, Jim and Stephen F. Kelly, who we had on the show previously, talking about his introduction to Mr. Shankly when he was doing the garden next door to his grandparents in Huddersfield. John Mack talking about the days when he helped create the flag days on the Cop back in 1994. So yeah, we've covered quite a bit, and I think everybody's contributed well. I like the articles that people put in, so it's good, and it saves me doing them.
And how are sales?
Well, to date, we haven't sold it at the ground yet, obviously, because that starts tomorrow night. Unfortunately, it's a midweek game. If it had been a Saturday, I'd been very excited, or a Sunday. So we put it online, and the online sales, I can honestly say, are a record. So, yeah, it's going very, very well. We've even had 12 sales on eBay when we've never had that number before.
Wow. Okay. Well, it is great. I particularly liked Paul Kahn's article from Spirit of Shankly. Alan Green's regular column is always good. Former BBC commentator Alan Green. He doesn't hold back in this one, especially when it comes to Saudi Arabia and FIFA. So if you get the latest Read All Over the Land, you'll see what I mean about that one. And we mentioned Jim Boardman, Daily Mirror football writer, has done a piece for the fanzine. I loved what you wrote about the importance of fanzines. Have you always been a fanzine fan?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember which fanzine it was that I saw the first time going into Anfield one time. This is going back to the days when we were laughing at the Mancs because they'd not won the title for so many years, and we had our 18, and we were looking down on there were t-shirts being sold outside the ground celebrating it. It was all a good laugh, and obviously what happened after that wasn't great, and they managed to catch up to us. But I can just remember that at that time I picked one up, and it was just good to read this sort of irreverent view of what's going on with the club, different people's views, other fans' views, stuff that mirrors your own stuff that mirrors what you're talking about with your mates away from the game. And it's just another viewpoint, isn't it? Or a lot of other viewpoints. So, yeah, I've been a fan of fanzines for a long time. And I think fanzines were the sort of trailblazer, if you like, for the fan media that we see around now, which I think is vital. Because there's no agenda, is there? Well, if there is an agenda, it's not the same. Newspapers are trying to just sell newspapers, and the headline will do whatever's needed to sell a paper. If you're writing or speaking on local radio, even, you've got to kind of quickly throw a bit of Evertonian balance in. Wherever you're sort of reading stuff about Liverpool, there's maybe some other element to it, but when it's in a fanzine or fan media, it's genuinely people who care about the club, and even if you don't agree with their opinions, you probably agree with why they're saying it.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the radio, because I've done a lot of work for BBC Radio Merseyside, not recently, but a while ago. And the easiest way to get the phone ringing is to actually play Jerry Marsden, You'll Never Walk Alone, because all the blue noses ring up to complain. And I did it every time I was on because every time they told me not to do it again, and I did it again. And I'm not on there anymore. Yeah. But anyway, it always amazed me that, why they can't. And if you were listening to the match build-up as well on Merseyside, and City, when they used to do the match as well, and callers, it was funny after a match. There'd be more like if we won, there'd be fewer Liverpool callers, and if Everton lost, there'd be more Everton callers. And it used to annoy me. And I think, why can't they just split the frequency and have on the DAB have one and on the FM have the other, and we can just get the one we want? But yeah, you can hear them desperately trying to balance it out, and sometimes they're really struggling for callers, because if we won, we didn't call up as much. It's like,
that's it. I know. Even now, Radio Merseyside, they sort of, before the show, they're talking about what's happened at the weekend and thinking, we're not going to get many calls tonight, are we? It just depends on how the game is, doesn't it? And say you're going on a Monday night. There's some people have been waiting all weekend to get stuff off the chest. But I mean, I'll have to mention that though. Playing "You'll Never Walk Alone," that'll get a few more out.
Always made them ring up. Yeah, always made. And it was things like, I had Jerry Marsden as a guest once and played it, and they still rang up and complained. I'm like, what? I was supposed to play "How Do You Do It," and I played "You'll Never Walk Alone." Because I knew they'd all ring.
They always jump in, the Evertonians, don't they? And it's as soon as someone plays "You'll Never Walk Alone" as meaning, for the people of Liverpool, it's wait just a minute. It's not for all the people of Liverpool. But
unfortunately, I do try to keep a balance, but considering since I started Red All Over the Land, they've not won a trophy. And I'm surprised
you can only do so much, can't you, John?
I'm surprised they haven't rang in to complain about that and blame me.
I was telling my daughter about how old the fanzine is, because she's 21, 22. I should remember. I say, no, it was 6 years before you were born, the first issue of this. And of course, also Everton haven't won a trophy since 6 years before you were born, which is phenomenal time.
Oh, well, they've got the chance of winning the if they win the championship next season, they've got they'll be in that one. They'll be you've got the chance.
Win the playoff
they should think positive. Yeah. So how did you become a Liverpool fan, Jim?
Yeah, it's hard to remember exactly. Born in Liverpool, I can remember being in school and kids asking, who do you support, and saying I support Liverpool because I was born in Liverpool. And I don't know if that was the true reason. I just had this vague recollection. But I had, people around me, family, who pushed me that way. I think my uncle was probably the strongest one to push me that way. He's the one who sat me down. I can remember, it's weird how it sticks in your mind. I would have been 5 the day Bill Shankly announced his retirement, which is something that's come into our heads a lot recently with Klopp. I didn't understand it, but I can still remember him trying to explain to me who this guy was and why he was so important, because at 5 you just see these footballers that you want to be when you grow up, and I can remember him explaining it to me, just how big a day it was, how momentous it was. And it's strange how these things fit into your head, isn't it? But growing up, pretty much everyone around our way was either red or blue or didn't really like football. There was one Tottenham fan for some reason, not really sure why, but you were mainly red or blue, and all the usual stuff in the playground and onwards comes on a Monday morning, doesn't it, after the derby and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So you were born in Liverpool. Where did you grow up?
I grew up outside Liverpool, so I was born in Liverpool, but I've kind of grown up in and around Warrington, basically, so not too far away. But
well, I'm similar.
As the years have gone on.
We lived in Egbert when I was born, but when I was 2, we moved to Great Sankey near Warrington.
So I mean, we used to go school.
So there were Manx at school,
Sankey,
You used to do what?
Yeah. We used to go school swimming lessons were at Great Sankey High School.
Oh, at Barrow Lane School.
Yeah. So I lived in Burton Wood, so we used to have the air base not far away. Burton Wood Air Base, the RAF.
I learned to drive on the old runway there. We used to break in.
Yeah. I got chased off there once because we'd gone over the fence.
Yeah, me and my mate ended up sleeping at Burton Wood Services in the car park one night in my Ford Escort, and we ended up going on the runway, and the police chased us, and they caught up with us, and they checked out the car and everything, I mean, looked in the boot and everything. There was nothing going on. We were just two stupid idiots at 17, with no money and nothing to do. And they said, right, well, off you go. And as soon as we got on the road, just outside that gate that went onto the road near the services, police pulled us over and did me for a bald tyre. He'd clocked it on the runway, but the runway wasn't a public road. So he had to wait to get me on the public road so as he could book me. Yeah.
I can just remember, I don't know how old we would have been, 10 or 11. We climbed over the fence and started to walk down towards, the old where the old runway was and so on, and got chased off. At that age, I don't think I'd ever heard that kind of language off an adult, but it had the effect. We didn't go over the fence again after that.
Yeah. Well, it's probably put you in good stead for going to Anfield, for being exposed to that kind of thing. Memorable games for you, then?
There were a lot of Mancs around. Sorry, there were a lot of Mancs around in those days as well, but I don't think there were as many.
No.
I always thought it odd that the ones that were around were so kind of arrogant about the club, and I'm thinking, as I'm growing, I don't actually remember you winning anything.
Yeah.
So when they actually did start winning anything, they became even more insufferable, didn't they?
Yeah. I was lucky, though. I was living in New Zealand and Australia by that stage, so I wasn't exposed to it very often. But I was at a radio station in Mount Gambier in South Australia in 1995, and the program director left and a new guy took over, and he came in on day one. He was Australian with a Man United shirt on. And then from that moment on, I knew I was in trouble. And and we never got on. And it was horrible, and he didn't like anything I did on the air, and I knew why. It had nothing to do with what I sounded like on the radio. And I ended up leaving, but they kind of sacked me before. I put my notice in. I put a month's notice in, and I went on the air, and the local TV station were in rating sweeps, and I used to make fun of the local TV station, and they had a competition on the TV. They'd put like symbols up on the screen while the big movie was on, and the bloke who owned the TV station also owned the paper, and the local paper had a competition, and if you filled in this grid of whatever, you got the phrase that pays, if you worked it out from the letters that came up on the screen by watching the different movies to get the TV ratings up, you won a return trip to Paris, which from Australia is a big destination. It's a once in a lifetime trip. And on the air, I solved it and gave the answer away on day 2 or something, and they were in ratings. And this guy rang my general manager and whatever. So they suspended me. They took me off the air, which they should have done as soon as I gave my notice. And they put me in the back studio, and my job was to record onto cartridge album tracks. So because we were still playing vinyl back then, even in '95. And so what I did was, while I was recording them, I opened the mic and sang along to them, so that when they put them after I'd left, I'd still be on the station. So but all because he was a Man United fan. He wasn't even from. He was from. I think he was from Adelaide. I forget where he was from, actually, but he wasn't from anywhere near Manchester. So he was. So although I avoided Manchester United fans for a long time, it turned out having quite an effect on my career. In the end. What about memorable games for you then?
There's so many, isn't there? I mean, sometimes it's the games. I mean, I always, for some reason, the one that's been in my head recently is the 4-3 against Newcastle, the first one, when
the first one,
Colin Moore scored. Yeah, I think it's probably because the recent game against Newcastle was starting to look like it was going to go that way. I can just remember, though, that was one where I watched it at Anfield, came home, watched the whole thing back on VHS, whatever time of night that was. I mean, I never really did that very often, and probably watched it again the day after and the day after and the day after. But really, in a way, it's a shame that game is so memorable because it didn't really lead to anything for us, did it? So I think other than that, it's just those European nights. I think growing up, it was a lot of time spent listening to the radio, listening to European nights on Radio City or Radio Merseyside.
With Elton Wellesby.
Clive Tilsley and things, because obviously back then, most of the games weren't on TV. But then, of course, you get...
A mate of mine used to tape them on cassette, and he had a collection of all the Liverpool matches.
It must be great to listen back to. I mean, I love listening to, even the old Radio City jingles bring a bit of a chill down the spine. It reminds you of those days, the 194 Radio City jingle. because all those nights in Europe, all those amazing evenings when we'd gone through, and Clive Tilsley was so excited. I was shocked to find he wasn't a Liverpool fan, because he always sounded like one when he's doing the commentary. But then at the end of all of that was always that 194 Radio City as they went into the news.
Radio City. Yeah, it was great.
Which was written by Jerry Marsden, wasn't it? So I'm surprised.
Was it? I didn't know that. Did Jerry write that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's
There's
why in
something
the end
I didn't know.
one of the reasons we had to stop using him, because apart from they were no longer on 194, were they? But the royalties would have been a bit high, I think.
I remember an away game against Benfica, and because Radio City, because it didn't start till like 74. So I remember in like 76 or 77, we were away. It was the UEFA Cup, and we were playing Benfica. And I don't know where they'd managed to get the commentary, but they were trying to do the commentary from the match, and a bloke stood next to him was just going, Benfica, 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 and they couldn't shut him up, because it was like, it was just so funny to listen to. Yeah. And that was when on a Saturday they only used to have the second half commentary, didn't they? For some reason, I don't know.
Yeah, second half commentary. It was always whoever was away, wasn't it? Later on, I think they did split the frequencies, didn't they? You could have medium wave for the home team if you wanted the away. If you wanted the FM, you had to be the away team. But yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know. It's we watch all the games on TV if we can't go to the game now, don't we? And it's great watching them that way. But in a way, I kind of do miss that radio commentary when you're sort of sitting there and you're picturing the scene, and you know they'd be telling you Liverpool attacking the Kop to our right and all these sorts of things, and you know, you can sort of use your imagination to see what the goal was like.
What I like to
do,
what I like to do if I'm busy is when I walk the dog when Liverpool are playing, I'll listen to the first part of the first half on the radio with through my phone, and what's great is in the build-up and hearing "You'll Never Walk Alone" and all that. It's almost like being there. It's that good. And then get home and then watch the rest of it on the TV. Yeah. So I know what you mean about the radio. It's still good. Football on the radio is still good. It's well done. Most stations, some not so good. I think TalkSport do a reasonably good job, and 5 Live often do. It's a shame that they don't let you listen to the local stations online anymore when they blank it out when the match is on. So, but I listen to it through LFC TV. I listen to their to that and their audio commentary, and it's quite. He shouts a bit, but you know that's how it is. More on that actually a little bit later on tonight. I've got something John found that we'll bring up a little bit later on. So how did you become a writer about football then, a football writer?
Yeah, I used to do computer programming, software development, and I took ill, and I needed to sort of think, this was before COVID. I thought if I can work from home in my own time, wasn't fit enough to go in an office 9 to 5, but maybe I can get the hours in over the weekend, bits of an evening, whatever, try and fit something. I need to do something to work from home. And I thought best thing to do is maybe create websites, because you can do them from home and, work with people doing that. And to learn how to do them, to teach myself how to code websites, I thought I need something to do one on, need to base on something. I thought I'll do a Liverpool website, and just started writing Liverpool blogs. You need content for it. And in the end, that just kind of took off, because, once you start getting your thoughts down on paper or online, writing articles, people start showing an interest. It gives you the passion to do more. And I think really all that kind of coincided with all the stuff going on where Rafa had come in, we were winning the Champions League. It felt like we were coming back. We were getting back to being a really big team again. Then along came the Americans, the first lot. The Cowboys, the nightmare that they caused, and so there was so much to write about. And I always think, I said this to musicians, a lot of musicians, you find that most of the stuff is about being miserable, isn't it? It's about, their other half cheated on them, or unrequited love, or they split up with someone, and they seem to write the best stuff when it's about something that's not great. And
when the life is going perfectly, they become rubbish, don't they?
Yeah, you don't need to write as much when it's all going well, because it's just like just watch it. You just watch it yourself. When it's not going so well, you feel I need to speak about this. I need to let people know about this. And the more people listen, the more, the more encouraged I was to do it, because, I think there's a lot of stuff goes on, even in the media at times. I mean, I think one of the things I did early on was I tried to explain what was being said in the paper, what it really meant, to read between the lines. There's a lot of stuff in the paper where things are said in a certain way, and it's not a lie, but it's written to make you think it means something else, isn't it? You'll know what I mean. One of the best ways they do that is they use the word after. They'll talk about two completely unconnected events and put the word after in between to make it sound like the second one was caused by the first one. So I spent a lot of time just trying to explain that and what it really meant.
Do you find that the first one is caused by the second one, but they can't say it for certain reasons, so they do that to let you know, or are they just being mischievous?
I think sometimes they are just being mischievous, but sometimes that is exactly what they're trying to get at. It's difficult. We do say the press tell lies, and they have done at times. A lot of the time, though, it's not them telling the lies, is it? It's someone they've spoken to, and that's, I think, my biggest issue with lies in the press is when they probably know they're being lied to, but they don't really press the other person, because now they've got this quote, they've got this lie, and they can put it out there because it's not them telling the lie, it's somebody else. But things are often carefully worded, and
right.
The media's changed, but I think, that's another reason getting into the writing as well. The aftermath of what happened in 1989 and the way that was reported meant that even by the time I was writing, mid 2000, 2005 and thereabouts, there was still a lot of campaigning to be done, and I felt there's another way. Fanzines have done a lot of it. It's another way for us to try and get the word out about Hillsborough and what had really happened and the cover up and all the rest of it.
And still, there are people around the country who still believe the lie, and that's where the tragedy chanting has come from that kind of thing, not realizing that this was caused by a prejudice against, in particular, football fans, but people from Liverpool, the working class, they don't realize that they should stand with us on this, because this is what happened, the cover up and the lies. It happened to be us, but it could have been anybody. If they'd got to the semi-final and their marble came out and they were in that end of the ground, it would have been them. Yeah, and that's a
if
shame.
it happened at Twickenham, it would have been a different response, wasn't it? We always say
exactly.
If it's,
yeah.
The thing is, though, with the media, there's always been that old adage: they've got to sell newspapers, and if somebody, the football fans in the 80s, prior to Hillsborough, had got a bad name. I remember getting on a train wearing a scarf, and the person sitting opposite me moved. That was simply because I just got on the train and sat down. It was some old lady, and she just went and moved. Don't know what she thought we were going to do. And we went into a pub one night after a game somewhere, and the landlord told us to get out. And we said, "Why?" It's you football fans, and we're passing through, and as we went out, about 6 people followed us. I thought, "Oh, here we go." And he said, "If you can't stay, we're going." I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, we're Leeds fans." So they all got up and went out as well. But but that's how I've always seen newspapers. What was on the front page, let's say 40 years ago, that sold the newspaper. And nobody would have wanted to read that Liverpool fans had been to numerous European games and been actually welcomed by the cities that they went to, and the people, the fans, the clubs where they went to. And this was going on from the 1970s right through up until, of course, Heysel. And that was the first time that Liverpool fans actually had a bad night. And that's what's remembered. I can actually remember Margaret Thatcher herself saying that Liverpool were her flagship in Europe because of the way the fans behaved. That we were the ones that that went out over there and behaved. And I say, a lot of Liverpool fans, it was all about finding out about fashion and things like that. And yeah. Well, there's a few other stories about that, but that was it. But then, of course, now everybody says about talks. That's the only thing people will talk about. Even
Yeah,
now, 40 years on, that's
yeah,
what people will talk about.
yeah,
And it's negativity, isn't it? It's negativity that sells the papers. They're not going to put on the front page, Liverpool fans praised, 1983 or whatever, 1980, whatever year, 1977 even. Liverpool fans praise, it just doesn't, it barely gets a mention. It might get a mention in a match report because the match report's written by someone who's probably a fan themselves, let's face it, and they might throw a paragraph in, but the front page isn't going to mention any of that. He just wants negativity on the front, really.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the way that news in general works, whatever medium it's on, news is a collection of unusual events. Most people leave the house and go to wherever they're going and come home and nothing happens. But if someone leaves the house and something happens, which doesn't happen that often, it's news. So the news is a collection of things that don't normally happen. But you're fed this constantly and you start thinking, well, that's bad. This is going on now. And it's not going on that often. Yeah. That's why it's news. It's the unfortunate thing about news is that it is a collection of things that don't normally happen.
I mean, on the other side of it, a bit more light-hearted. If when Liverpool won the cup in 1965, I dare say every copy of the Liverpool Echo was sold. Had they lost, people wouldn't have bought it.
Yes,
so,
yes, good point, John. Yeah.
That's it. And I remember coming back from Dortmund in 2001. I was armed with newspapers. I'd been collecting them on the way because we went by car, and everywhere was stopped. And one paper, I can always remember it. It got Liverpool beat 9 men Alaves. I thought they had 9 men for about 10 seconds. It was things like that. But the rest of the game. But going back to that game you mentioned about Newcastle United, I've always had a memory of that 4-3. And I always used to go to game. I had an old leather jacket, and I wore it basically every time I went to a game. I don't know how many years I'd had it, probably about 20. And when Liverpool scored, when Collymore scored that goal, the lad next to me pulled the sleeve, and the sleeve came off. And that was, and I was elated and gutted because I thought, well, that's it. That leather jacket, that's half my history was there, and it had gone.
It should be in the museum, shouldn't it? That this
really
jacket went to all of these games, but it was finished off at this match, and this is why.
I don't think the museum wanted it. I mean, a couple of people who were making guys didn't want it. So,
how did you end up? How did you end up writing for the Daily Mirror then, Jim?
I think we were just. I was working, doing a few different things that were getting attention, and I just got contacted by one of the guys, and they just wanted to have sort of a Liverpool fans viewpoint basically in there. So that's what I did, and so to be quite honest, I've not written for a little bit for them now, but regularly it was just getting a point across that. From a Liverpool perspective. And what I really liked about the Mirror was they never sort of told me, we want you to go with this line. They would say to us, this has happened. I don't know, Philip Coutinho's going to leave Liverpool. What do you think? And I would literally write about that. I mean, there had been other papers that had contacted me to write over the time, and they sometimes say, can you write this? Can we start, I think before we all sort of got fed up with Brendan Rodgers, there was I think one of the papers said to me, can you write a piece that just sort of criticises him, say that fans are starting to go against him? And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And so the Mirror have always been fair to me and let me write what I think and write what I believe. So, and that's so important to me. I'm not always complimentary to the club. There's been times when you're the exact opposite, especially when we've had dodgy owners or when we've been going through difficult times. But it still has to be, in my view, what I think as a fan. And I mean, I don't speak for every fan, but I'm sure a lot of people would share my views. And of course, when you write, people tell you when they don't, and you can sort of have discussions on it. But yeah, they contacted me, and I think the first time I wrote for them, I was actually away. I was in Dublin, and I think the first article I wrote, I had to write on my phone. because I was away at the time, and I thought I'm not going to miss this opportunity. So I'm sitting on my phone trying to write one, and it worked out.
You've appeared on a few podcasts as well. Well, you regularly appear on podcasts. Which ones are you on? I know Anfield Index is one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, I mean, we started the Anfield Rap a few years ago as one of the people that started that. I moved away from that quite some time ago now. Joined up with Anfield Index. So I've got a weekly show I do with a friend called Scouser Tommies. We try and give a view of what's going on at the club, from a local perspective, because a lot of the listeners to Anfield Index, a lot of the contributors are from around the world. And I think, as you'll know yourself, when whatever's going on with the club, I mean, we're a worldwide club now. Everyone knows, as this podcast, as this show says, we're known all over the world, we're known all over the land, but there's just some sort of different nuances locally. And they just, we came up with the idea, of the Anfield Index people did, can we do a regular show? Just start kind of sharing opinions from Liverpool, which is, I think it's good to get the chance to do that as well. Just say the stuff that's going on. And the lad who's on it with me, he works in the city centre with a lot of Evertonians as well. So we have quite a laugh as we share the things he's been told that week by Everton, who obviously see things in a very different way to us. And it's always good fun. Also on Anfield Index, we do a show called Post-Match Raw, where we literally get on. There's a few different people that do it. I don't do every week, but when you get on, you get on straight away as soon as the match is finished, and you talk about the match. So by that stage, you've not really had chance to kind of digest what happened. You've not had chance to listen to what the manager said. You've not had chance to watch a few more replays. You're still angry with the ref and all the rest of it. And to be honest with you, by the time we've finished, it's a bit like therapy. If you just had an awful game, by the end of it, you're over it a little bit more.
Did you do after the Arsenal game? Were you on after the Arsenal game? Wow.
Yeah, and I think that one took an hour and a half. We do sometimes go a little bit long. We're supposed to aim for the hour. Yeah, that was an hour and a half, and as long as the match,
You'll have to send me a link, and I'll watch a few shows. But I must admit, once the game's finished, I'll just head down to where the soccer bus leaves from and get on there. And it's quite actually interesting because you're listening to what people are saying, and from all over the soccer bus isn't for locals. It's basically 90% of the people on it are probably from Ireland or somewhere, and it's amazing just to listen to some of the things they say. And
I agree.
That's where I get some of the comments from that I put in the fanzine. It's. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who we played. It was Aston Villa last year when it was one of the first games that went. I think the referee added about 12 minutes on, and the guy got on the bus and he was moaning non-stop, not about the game, but he thought he might miss his train because of the referee. So I thought, well, I've now heard referees have been blamed for everything, but this guy had to catch I think it was the 5:47 train when he had no chance.
Right. But these days they rarely run on time anyway. So what was he worried about, really? The train.
When he got off the bus, everybody let him go. Go on, off you go. And there he goes running with his little lad running behind him.
I got the soccer bus myself one game this season. I think it was, I can't remember. It was one of the midweek games, and I can remember it was a long walk to the end of that queue. But you're right, you do hear lots of opinions from different people, and I like that. I like just listening to what other people say and other views, because we've all got our own opinions on things, haven't we? Again, this is why fanzines are so good, because what I see and what I think, as soon as I talk to somebody else and they tell me, well, what about this and what about that, your opinions evolve, don't they? But yeah, definitely, I think there is a difference in fans from around the world and locally on the different on how they feel. It's interesting, isn't it, how well loved Nunez is, yet there's quite a lot of fans online who aren't. Well, maybe now they're going quiet, but they've taken a while to warm to him. I'm not really sure why that is.
Well, talking to him, that's a good. John, you found this video, didn't you, which kind of explains the Darwin. Who do we credit here? Whose video is this? I know it was on Twitter, but do we know who did it? Because we're about to play it, and I'd love to credit them in case they think we're just stealing it.
No, we'll will give it to credit to whoever put it on Twitter. It's been shared by about 1 million people.
Yes,
so.
it has. And if anybody is watching, for anybody who's watching who wants to comment, if you know whose this is, let us know. But I'm not sure if you've seen this, Jim, but this kind of explains the Darwin phenomenon and why he plays the way he does. Yeah, he doesn't like taking the easy route, does he? That's the thing with him.
If we talk about Saturday's game, when I saw that, when I watched that, and I just thought he was running towards the goal, and I saw Jota 5 yards away. I thought, pass it, chip, and that was it. I mean, it was so incredible. It's just amazing. And the strange thing about Saturday was, I don't know if you saw the highlights of the Manchester City game, but Haaland looked like a shit Andy Carroll.
Right. Okay. Well, is Darwin?
I was in the
Sorry, Jim.
I was in the Anfield Road end when we played Norwich, and they'd literally just been singing that, and then 2 minutes later, up he pops and scores the goal against them, which I think the best way to answer him, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, is Darwin on the injured list now? Because he was taken off as a precaution, wasn't he, in the Brentford game? Do we know if he's on that long list?
I didn't see him mentioned, but they might have had room to put him in.
Yeah. Because what is it now? It's Jota, Curtis, Alisson, Szoboszlai, Thiago. Have I missed any?
Oh, there's more than that. Yeah, Trent.
Bishetic.
Yeah, of course,
there's. I think it's easier now to say who's not on it. And, it's just. I mean, all clubs have injuries. I mean, Newcastle's had a horrendous time. Manchester United, to be fair, prior to Christmas, was having a bad time of it. And it's just too much football. That is the main thing about it. But we've got a cup final on Sunday, so they've moved the Luton game, to Wednesday. But people moaned about it. But in fairness, if you're in 4 competitions, when else can you play it? It's the way the game is.
I think as well, we've got so many games, and then we start with, and that starts the injuries going. But then players are maybe having to play longer because of the injuries. You maybe would have let a couple of them rest, but they're having to play. I mean, Trent is probably an example of that. In that case, it was Conor Bradley was obviously having a bereavement leave, if you like.
Yeah,
a different reason, but he maybe wouldn't have started that game, Trent, but he did. And then next game he breaks down. And this is, I think, I was saying this last week. As soon as you get one fit, another one goes out. When it's been all through the season, I've looked at starting lineups and looked at the bench and thought, well, we've got 2, maybe 3 recognised first team players on the bench. And it's been like that for quite a while now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worked. It's worked well in another respect, because if it wasn't for the injuries, Conor Bradley probably would be playing in the under-21s. But he's not. He's come through and he's shown a quality. And the thing about Conor, he's not frightened to foul somebody. So he's not a shrinking violet. That's a fact. And he's possibly, my knowledge of Irish football, Northern Irish football, is not brilliant, but I can't think of many better players in the last 20 years that's come out of Northern Ireland than he looks. I mean, early days, he's 20 years old, but yeah, what a player. And Bobby Clark, who's an 18-year-old, his father played football. He might start getting a few games. And these are lads that's got some talent, and I'm not a fan of academy football the way it's run. I used to prefer the old days of the reserves and
In the Central League, yeah.
where you were playing against people who might actually kick you,
Yeah.
and things like that. So, but these lads, I watched a game a few weeks ago when they played Arsenal in the Youth Cup, and they were absolutely brilliant. And we've got so much, Jaden Dans. I don't know if he's going to make it or not, but he scores goals for fun. Kumas, the young lad whose father again played, so did Jaden Dans. They both played professional football, so we've got some good young lads. The thing is, you can't rush them too much, but
Well, you might have to.
we're possibly going to have to. Yeah.
I always think back to Robbie Fowler that he got that amazing 5 goals in his third game, wasn't it, against Fulham, and he'd scored 1 goal in the first leg of that League Cup, and I'm not sure if he scored on the game in between, but he really got his chance. I'm pretty sure because of injuries at the time. Maybe and this was because in those days League Cup wasn't. You don't put your second string out, do you? In those days, you tried to put your first team out for the League Cup, and he got a chance because of injuries, and he took it with both hands. And I think Conor Bradley's done the same. It's the manager's got to sort of give them a go. He's so short on players, give them a go. But when you give them a go and they do that, he's going to get his reward, isn't he?
People say to me, you can't play these lads, and I'm not going to do the Alan Hansen thing of the kids, but Stephen Gerrard was 18, and he was a regular in the first team.
Michael Owen was 17, wasn't he?
Yeah, and move over the park. Wayne Rooney was playing, for Everton at the age of 17. And the old adage again: if you're good enough, you're old enough. So, and that's it. We've got to give these lads a chance, and you can't put them all in, but these are lads that's now going to have to show what they've got, and it excites me in a way that we've got so much talent, and I just want to see that talent blossom.
Yeah.
And it doesn't blossom down at the academy because you get a handful of spectators, and there's not a lot of tackling going on, but put them in the first team. Let's see what they've got. And
let's not forget, they're not going in a first team that's mid-table. They're going in a first team that's top of the table. So it's quite the opportunity. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if somebody says now going to the game tomorrow, Jarrell Quansah's centre half, people will say, okay, I mean, 5 months ago, they'd have been saying who.
Yeah.
But now they know who he is, they know what he's going to do, and he's built like a heavyweight boxer. He's not built like and he's, as I say, he's from Warrington, and he is very intelligent. He's very articulate. He's very good, and we've got people like him, and these are all lads that's been educated the Liverpool way.
I like the way that Quansah can play on the left or the right. So when he played the whole game, and I think Virgil and Canate played roughly half a game each alongside him, and he just swapped sides. He played on the opposite side, so they were on their preferred side. He adapted and moved the other way, which is kind of the other way around to how you'd expect it. And I think something that I've said a few times as well recently is, how much money does it save Liverpool that they've got Quansah, that they've got Conor Bradley? If you'd have gone off and bought someone of that sort of standard, that sort of quality, would have cost a fortune. So maybe that investment in the AXA training centre, where the academy players are kind of closer to the first team players now, I think it's starting to pay for itself, isn't it, bit by bit?
Definitely. And the other thing, unfortunately, is now possibly out for the rest of the season. But Ben Doak, £500,000 from from Glasgow Celtic, and a talent, absolute talent. And Cade Gordon, who, again, another player who we paid a few quid to Derby to take off their hands, he's now back in the fold, and hopefully he can start playing more regular. So, these, and if you look at the cost, if you want somebody like Ben Doak and you went to Benfica or somewhere like that, you'd be paying £40 million for them. We've
Yeah.
got them.
Yeah.
We've got them for a couple of, we've gone for beer money.
So how do we think we'll go against Luton then, just looking ahead to tomorrow night?
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be who's fit will play almost. But, the interesting thing is you'd think, it's a cup final on Sunday, isn't it? And without sort of being disrespectful to Luton, especially with what they did to us at their place, you think you've got to, maybe rest some players and leave them for Sunday. But I don't know, Klopp doesn't really seem to do that very often, does he? I just think the team's almost going to pick itself, though. There's not a lot of choice, is there? Front to back, I think it's almost just going to be, the players who maybe finish the game at the weekend almost.
John?
I would say that if you look at the team we can put out tomorrow, every single player that starts in the Liverpool side tomorrow would get in the Luton team.
Yes.
The Luton team would get in the Liverpool side.
Yeah. All right. Well, looking forward to the cup final then. John, you mentioned in the fanzine in the 300th issue of Red All Over the Land, you mentioned in there that it's digital tickets for the first time. What's that all about?
Well, digital tickets for Liverpool fans. Chelsea can still use the paper tickets. It's what's happening in not just sport, but theatre goers and people who want to go to see rock shows.
But it's often an option, isn't it? You can download a digital ticket like you can with the train ticket and whatever, or you can get a paper one if you want one. But it seems football you can't.
These are all on your phone, and again, Jim will understand what I mean by this. The thing is, when you got a cup final ticket in your hand, it meant so much. To look at it on your phone, it doesn't have the same thing. It's just to have that cup final ticket, especially when go back to '65 when I got that ticket for the Leeds United game. It was priceless. Well, it was priceless. 7 and 6 actually, but so. It was something. You'd got one in your hand, and you put it somewhere safe. You'd lock it away in a cupboard at night just to keep it. But now you got one on your phone. But I say, my other half, she's a tennis fan, and she qualified for tickets at Wimbledon in the ballot. So we bought 2 tickets for the first week. We could have gone on to get them for the second week and all that, but the prices were going up and up and up. Just download it. It's on your phone. It's on her phone. So we've got to take the phones to Wimbledon. So it's not just football. People got to get out of the habit of saying it's Liverpool. It's not. It's the way it's going.
Well, let's just hope that Wembley is set up to take, because we don't want a repeat of other times, the European Cup final in Paris, for instance.
That's my concern, is how they're going to, how Wembley can cope with it. Because, although I do think I've got a feeling that a lot of the people who be operating the turnstiles will be Liverpool stewards, so they'll be okay. They'll know a bit about it.
The strange thing was, apparently the reason Chelsea fans aren't getting digital tickets is because they don't have the technology at their place yet. And you'd think it'd be the other way around, wouldn't you? The well-to-do Chelsea lot would be the first
in the capital
devices. Yes, we'd be well back. Up here we'd be well behind them, but no.
But you look at Chelsea's ground. I mean, okay, it's a little bit removed now from when it used to have the dog track round it, but everything else, they were great days when you go there, and at half time you probably hear the managers moaning and the dogs barking. It was quite unique, but but I agree with you there, Jim. Yeah, we've got the technology. Chelsea haven't.
And so then, looking forward to FA Cup. What do we think's going to happen there?
Well, yeah. Feels like a lot. The old thing about Liverpool, one game at a time. It feels a long way off that, doesn't it? But it's not. They're coming thick and fast. We've got to progress, haven't we? You just hope. You've got to not turn up assuming you're going to win, but turn up assuming you can win if you put everything into it. And again, I think we'll probably just end up putting out whatever team we can, because I think we've lost that luxury of just being able to kind of rotate. It's almost who's fit, find the first 11 that can play and get them out there.
I mean, to me, again, Southampton are chasing promotion, so they may also be thinking in terms of rotating, because they're going to have another big game on the Saturday after the cup tie, or the weekend after the cup tie. So we shall see. But again, I will say now that no matter what team we put out, every one of those players would get in the Southampton team.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And for a change, maybe we won't be buying half the Southampton team in the next couple of years, which we've done in the past, haven't we?
No. We've moved on now. It's Brighton, isn't it?
Yeah. But at the time when that Southampton thing was going on, I said to Paul Beasley at Radio Merseyside, I said, why don't Liverpool just buy Southampton Football Club and use them as a farm team? But
yeah, well, I said at the time, why don't we just sign their scouts and their their people who go finding these gems?
Yeah,
and just said the same with Brighton.
I was actually looking at an old cover of a fanzine saying that Southampton reported Liverpool. Southampton reported Liverpool to the FA, not because we'd signed all the players, but because their fans didn't know who to boo. I can't remember the actual game, but Van Dijk was playing, Sadio was playing, Klein was playing, and got that many in, and they were booing that many. I mean, it was pass, and they were booing, and thankfully it was Salah and Firmino that scored the goal, so they didn't boo anymore.
I still don't understand why they do that. I mean, as a Liverpool fan, you've always sort of welcomed a player back, haven't you? When you're at Anfield and an old
unless they've done something or said something.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Raheem Sterling didn't exactly endear himself to fans the way he left.
He didn't leave on the best of terms, did he?
But on the whole, any player who comes back to Anfield, he's given a round of applause, and liked.
I mean, you actually look forward to seeing James Milner when he returns. I mean, Man City fans used to boo him because he was playing for Liverpool. Yeah. I do not know why, because he couldn't get in their team. Yeah. So he came to Liverpool to play football. He's gone to Brighton to play football. So it's it will get a standing ovation.
And that's one of the great things about Liverpool that makes Liverpool different to the rest. And Liverpool likes being different to the rest, which is why it's such a shame that George Sefton doesn't read the team sheets on match days anymore. And we have to listen to, what's his name from LFTV? Who does it now? Liverpool! And he just goes all over the top. But John found something, and I don't know if you've seen this, Jim. John found something that we may complain about, that kind of razzmatazz at our club. It could be much, much worse. Do you want to set this up, John? Do you want to say what this is or where it's from, or should I just play it?
Manchester City players arriving at their own ground.
Okay, this is what happens. And I thought maybe this had been faked, but it's genuine.
For the moment you've been waiting for has arrived. So let's get ready to make some noise for the FA Cup winners, the Premier League winners, and the Champions League winners, Manchester City! And off the bus first, our manager. Make some noise for Pep Guardiola! Pep, who took charge of his 450th Manchester City game in midweek at Copenhagen. Let's hope there's plenty more to come as we see the backroom staff making their way into the building up a very soggy blue carpet. As our first player arrives, make some noise for Rodri! Followed by Ruben.
Yeah, I think we've seen enough of that. I mean...
Make some noise, he said. I don't think they understand what that means.
No, but I mean... To be stood in the rain watching them get off the bus and having all that. What is going on? I think the caption for that on Twitter, I think someone put like something like, "What in sweet suffering Jesus is this?" or something. It was just, who was that, John? Where did that come from?
It came off Twitter again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked it up. I mean, normally I just miss it, but I just thought, well, that's funny, because I can remember several years ago again. Now we used to go to Reading on because when they were in the Premier Division, and before the game, the stadium announcer would always shout, "Make some noise for the boys." And then he'd do the same thing at the start of the second half, whether they were 3-0 down, 4-0 down, or 1-0 up. "Make some noise for the boys." And I just used to think, oh, I can, you know, for someone who's like myself, you didn't need telling to make a noise.
No, and this, you know, I worked in radio a lot and did a lot of live events and that, and saw other DJs going on stage. I mean, we used to do the party at the park at BRMB, and it was like 20,000 people in the stadium for, you know, one show we had Tom Jones on, but we had, you know, former Spice Girls and like whatever. And the DJs would go on and go, "Make some noise." And I used to think, no, do something or say something that will make the crowd make some noise. Don't just say, "Make some noise." It's like a comedian going on shouting, "Laugh," instead of telling jokes. You know, it's just stupid. And I don't know where it came from or how it started, but to see it there at City is just pathetic. It makes them look even worse. I don't know about now because I don't live in the Northwest, but there used to be ads on Piccadilly radio for matches, for match tick, to get people to go to the match at City. They didn't have that for United, but I used to hear them when I was listening to the likes of Mike Sweeney or Dave Ward.
Talking about advertising the match, I can remember once we were at Blackburn for a night game, and we went and got some fish and chips. So it was raining, so me and my mate sat down in the bus shelter, and all of a sudden I could hear Graham Souness talking. He was the manager of Blackburn, and he was actually asking people to go to the game. And that was being piped into bus shelters. And I just thought, it was weird. It really was. I'm looking around to see where he was, and it didn't put me off my fish and chips, but it was just strange. But what clubs are doing nowadays, you know, thankfully, Liverpool have remained above all of that. You know, and
you've been chronicling what the fans are saying and what they've got to say in Red All Over the Land for 28 years. This is it. You can subscribe to it by going to redallovertheland.com. You can buy it at News From Nowhere on Bold Street. You can get it at Hotel Anfield, and you can buy it. What's that, John?
So we've all got copies.
Yeah.
Though, because there's a camera.
Oh yeah, and you can get it. You can buy it from John. John will even sign the 300th issue if you see him at Anfield, and he sells you it for only £2. John's behind. Okay, John's behind the main stand. You'll find Steve between the Albert and the Cop, and down by Flagpole Corner does
Andy and Martin.
Andy and Martin are there. So check it out. Red All Over the Land. Jim, it's been great having you on. How can we find out more about what you're up to?
I usually tweet things. You can find me on Twitter at Jim Boardman, and I'll usually tweet things about what I'm up to, or what I've been up to sometimes.
Fantastic. John, anything else you want to say?
No.
300 issues?
Tomorrow, I don't know if anybody sent any messages through, but if you're at the game tomorrow, buy a fanzine.
Buy a fanzine.
It's a souvenir edition, isn't it? It's definitely a souvenir edition, the 300.
It is. Collector's item, this one. Collector's item.
I thought if anybody wants to start a fanzine now and reach 300, they're going to have to do it in the next 30 years. So I won't be here to buy it. So this could be a one-off. Yeah.
Jim Boardman, John Pearman, thank you so much. And remember, as always,